Paint Along with Skye. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Skye and I post beginning level acrylic painting tutorials here on YouTube every Saturday. So make sure to hit subscribe so you can join the fun and paint along. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified when I post a new video. Alright, so this week we have a special waterfall painting that we're going to do. This one came as a request from one of my students. Love it when you guys have suggestions for me, helps me add to my list of ideas. So we're gonna be using our 4 standard brushes for this class that we use in most of our classes. These 4 sizes come in a kit that I recommend below, but they don't have to be exactly the same sizes. They need to be general sizes and shapes here and water media brushes. So I use a 3/4 inch wash brush. That's this flat brush here. And then I have 3 pointed brushes of different sizes. So this is a size 10, a size 3, and a size 3/0. Small little pointed brushes. Gonna get those in my water cup off the side of the screen. And the colors that I have to start with today for the background step only, I have some cobalt blue, some black and white. I have some phthalo green, but that's way more than we're gonna need. A little bit too much came out there on my palette, but I'll go ahead and transfer that over to the second part later. But you'll need probably more like one of these amounts of your phthalo green. And then I have a little bit of yellow, so it's the cadmium yellow, and a little bit of burnt sienna brown. To see a full materials list of everything that I recommend, check the description box below. It'll show you the colors for today, but then there'll also be a link to my materials page on my website, which will show you everything that you need to paint along. All right, let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, we're gonna get started with our medium-sized brush. We're going to do something that is a really nice start for a lot of paintings, which is to create a horizon line. And I'm going to do that with a gray color that my stones are going to be. And I'll maybe go just a little bit lighter with it even so that it's easy to cover if I need to adjust things. And we're going to be thinking here about our waterfall being the center, the focal point here. So I'm going to maybe start with just a little bit of like a straight-ish line in the center of my canvas, a little bit further up than the middle though. And then I'm going to gently slope up a little bit, and I'm going to create a little bit of sort of wiggliness in that top line. So this is the straight part where the water has carved the stone flat. But then up here we have sort of the stones around that are making up our waterfall. And then we're gonna have our waterfall maybe in like this little area right here. And then let's have it hit a second little stone area. And that's actually too steep. So we want it to be flat again, and then there'll be some stones on either side. So that's our first layer of our waterfall. And I'm actually gonna have 2 layers for today. And then there'll be another stone. And this will be where our pond starts. And I'm trying to make them different, each one, rather than following the same pattern all 3 down. You wanna have that little bit of randomness to it. And I'm going to do a straight line at the bottom. That's going to be where our pond starts. Now we have our main little waterfall area blocked out. Looking good. And then I'm going to grab my big brush. And I'm going to come in here to fill in the top part. So we've sort of created a little pre-sketch for ourselves, like a paint by numbers, and now we're just gonna fill it in. And I'm gonna take this beautiful cobalt blue with just a little bit of white and just make a beautiful, vibrant blue sky. Going back and forth, nothing too crazy here. We don't want too much sky in our picture, because again, our focal point is the waterfall. And I do want to go maybe a little bit darker than you might think for a normal sky, so that we have a nice contrast with the white water for the waterfall that we're going to add later. And we're going to take that light blue all the way down to our gray sketch line. Back and forth brush strokes, a little bit of water in the paint, not too much. Okay, we're going to cover just the top part of the sketch line. Nice, clean transition between our different sections. We're going to fill in our stones with gray now. I'm actually going to switch to a smaller size brush. I'm going to switch back to my medium-sized brush. Love this one. And we're going to come in with our gray now. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a slightly darker gray under where our waterfall is, because the stone is presumably wet from the water. So we're just going to go right over that area. We're going to lose our little sketches for a minute, and that's okay. We're going to bring some paint in either direction here. And I'm just going to work on one little section up here at a time. I'm going to bring this dark gray out towards the sides a little bit. And then I'm going to grab a lighter gray for the stones over where it would be drier, further away from our waterfall. I'm going to keep my brush strokes going back and forth. Blend a little bit, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we have that sort of stone look to it, which would of course have different textures in it. Okay, and then a little bit of light gray over here. Just, it's still a medium gray, just a little bit lighter. Okay, it's a good practice for blending. I'm gonna take a little bit of a lighter gray and go right on the top part towards the side here, just to get a nice clean line of separation there into the sky. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, and then right underneath, so that I don't lose my stone shape here, I'm going to take a little bit of a light gray and just go right over the top part first. So that we can see the difference. And then we're going to add some dark in there too. Same idea as the stone above it. We do want to get the same colors in there too. I just want to have a little bit of like light differentiating our stone layers. It's okay to kind of fill things in with gray and then come back and maybe darken things up or lighten things up however you need to. Working with grays, it's always very satisfying because your colors don't get muddy. Okay, so we can see the difference there a little bit from the stones. And then again, I want to take a little bit of dark gray under where that water is going to be falling. All right. All right, that's looking pretty good. As a starting point, smoothed down river stones. That's what I'm going for here. I'm gonna take now the last little stone layer and repeat the step above it. So same idea, we want a little bit of light gray right up top so that we can see the difference. All right. And then a little bit of dark gray again. Just like so, and kind of just wiggling my brush around to mess it up a little bit so that it doesn't look all too smooth. So we want it to look natural like the stones still. And these sides are mostly going to be covered with our trees, so we don't need to get too detailed with anything. All right, now we're going to use some of our green for water. And again, I just need a pinch of this. Way more came out than needed to. All right, we're gonna do a little gradation in here as well. And I'm going to start a pretty vibrant blue here for our pond. A little bit of phthalo and cobalt mixed together. Across the top. Nice clean transition. Beautiful pond. Would be wonderful to take a dip. Okay, just went across the top with this dark blue. Don't bring it too far down. Rinse my brush pretty well. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a yellowy brown sand color. So I'm going to mix my brown and yellow together with some white, and I should get a nice beige color. Not too dark. And I'm going to take that here to the bottom. Pull that up a little bit. Notice how I'm not blending the yellow with the blue. Just doing a quick line of this beige, and I'm going to take a little bit of white, go right on top of that to sort of soften it a bit. Great. Ooh, got a little splatter of white. Let me correct that really quick. Might as well correct things a little bit up here. I have my sky nice and consistent and smooth. Okay, looking good. Let's take a little bit of white. Oh, okay, I'll fix that too. But let me finish my gradation right here. With acrylic painting, it's always possible to go over things. So even when you get little splatters like that, it's not the end of the world. I wanted to finish my little gradation here, and I'm taking this light blue to my beige, but I'm not over blending it. All right, let me correct little splatter areas. I think that's a little too much to cover, so I'm just going to scoop that off. And we'll just take this opportunity to refine things, make any corrections that we need. And luckily that just went right on to a gray color, so nothing we can't fix. Okay, there we go. Crisis averted. I might take even a little bit more white down here to help me blend. So you see how we have the beige blending to white and then the blue blending to white, but we didn't sit there and overwork our blending so that we would get all the way between the beige and the blue. Blue is the opposite of orange. Orange is pretty much beige. So if we were to blend it, it would get kind of muddy and not that pretty. We do the blend to white instead. Just finding the top of that layer of stone. But once this first layer is looking pretty good, we're gonna step away and let it dry and come back and add everything else. So let's go ahead and take a few minutes and I'll see everyone in a few. Okay, welcome back, artists. We have a dry first layer and fresh colors on our piece of palette paper here. So I transferred over my too much phthalo green and I'll use some again in this part. I also have a little bit more of my cobalt blue, some more black and white, some more of my warm brown, which is called burnt sienna, and then just a tiny bit of my cadmium red and cadmium yellow. I rinsed my brushes and got some fresh water at break as well. Let's go ahead and jump right back on into things. I'm going to work a little bit more on my stones, just a tiny bit. Now that things are dry, I think I want to take a little bit of a lighter color to come on top of these top stones, and I think I might try to make a little bit of kind of scruffy texture up there too even. I'm going to have a few layers of scruffy texture. And I kind of do like a light scribble and also sort of like a tapping. A tap and a scribble. That might be a little too much of a color difference. So you can always take some more of your background color. And smooth things out a little bit, kind of preparing for where my water is gonna go. All right, looks better. Cool. And then I think I'm gonna take my next size down brush, with a little bit of a darker gray. And I'm going to create a little bit of a darker transition down here between my different rock layers. And again, I'm sort of letting things be scruffy on purpose so that we get a little bit of this like splashed rock feeling. And that's right where our water's gonna go through. All right, let me take one shade lighter. Just gonna do a quick little separation line there on the top rock. Just making things a little bit cleaner. All right, and then I'm gonna grab my brown and gonna leave my stones alone for a bit. We're going to add some trees. So I'm going to take a medium brown, so that was just my burnt sienna with a little bit of white. And I'm still going to be using this second to smallest brush, which is a really nice sized brush. And I'm just going to create a thin little line first, kind of coming out diagonally from this side. We want it to sort of trail off nice and thin at the end, and then we're going to just build a little tree to sort of frame the photo, and maybe there's a branch coming from off the side there to the top, and you can kind of build whatever little cute tree you like. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, line for line. We're just gonna build a little bit of the branches first. So you're just branching off there from our big ones to some small, thin little guys. If you spin your brush in your paint, it'll help the brush come to a better point. And then we'll need some small branches too. Coming off of our medium-sized. And maybe some even sort of overlap a bit. And I wanted to capture this time of year right now, which is currently just the beginnings of spring, at least where I'm at, pretty far south. And we are actually already getting blossoms on some of our first trees. So I thought it would be nice to do a little bit of blossoms on our trees today, but we gotta build our branches first. Okay, and that looks good. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side so that we have, like I said, a nice little frame for our picture perfect waterfall. All the way up with our branches. We don't want too small of trees. You don't want to cover too much of your focal point either. It's just a balance, and I'm always kind of wiggling my hand to get a nice natural feel. Lots of little differentiation in the width, the thickness of the branch. Quick brush strokes are a lot of times smoother. And if you get too like slow and detailed, quick but light handed, very light of hand, and still deliberate. All right, and this tree looks a little different on purpose. Mixing it up. All right, nice. And then right on top, while things are still a little bit wet, I'm gonna do a quick highlight on the trees as well. That'll really add a little bit of depth. You don't want to cover the medium brown completely. Want to see a little peekaboo of that color as well. Again, if you go too heavy-handed with this color, you can always grab some more of the darker brown and come back in and refine things a little bit. Okay, 2 tones of brown. We're getting kind of like a fall or wintry look right now. Going to grab some more of that light brown, come back in here for more highlights on the other side. Same idea, just taking some of my light brown right in the same areas. Right on top. And again, I'm going pretty quick. Quick, light, and deliberate. Nice. Cute. All right, exciting. I think it's just about time to add our water onto our waterfall, because we're going to give our trees, our branches, just a second to dry. But go ahead and do that. Let's grab a little bit of light blue. I'm gonna grab my medium brush for this step. You could use your smaller brush too, if you would prefer. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the blue-green that I had down here. I'm going to add a little bit of water, like a pool, in our first little pool, and I'm leaving a little bit of that dark color still. And it's important that this line is straight across horizontally. And then I'm going to add another one up top here. Kind of just like a little floating dish of water. And I'm not going to do one on top, because of the way that the camera angle would be. Okay, and then we're gonna add our water. We're gonna do the water step with our big brush and drag it off a little bit on my rag on the side of the screen here, because we want a damp brush. We don't want a wet brush or a dry brush. We want a damp brush. And I'm going to come in here, so you see how that fans out like that? I've deliberately separated the bristles. And I'm going to saturate that brush in a little bit of white. Don't have very much water here. And again, I want to make sure that those bristles are separated before I do this. Okay. And then I'm going to go from the top. And I'm very gently going to come straight down with some streaky white. It's okay if it blends with the blue a little bit. You want to go right along the top and pull it down into your little pool. Be careful not to go sideways. Really simple. I go over it a couple times just to get it a little bit more solid. Blending with the blue in my pond ever so slightly, which is nice. I did sort of like a little bit of a tapping motion along the top so that I can get a nice straight clean line across the top. And then we're gonna do the same thing down here in our second little area. If you'd like, you can leave a little bit of like a gap. I think that makes a little bit more interesting of a waterfall. Okay. Tapping ever so slightly. Pretty simple, but pretty cute. Okay. And then let me grab just a little bit more for my last little area too. Even though it's small. And then right along the bottom, add a little bit of splatters with this brush with that same separated bristles technique that we're using. You can even flip the brush over so that you get nice random splatters. All right. And then also, with that same brush technique, let's grab a little bit of our dark gray colors. We'll come in here and have a little bit of rock texture. Coming from the center and moving over. I have a watered down gray here, so there's not very much paint going on. Okay. That's a nice little texture there. Again, darker near the waterfall, similar to when we were starting with our main colors. This part, our main base gray colors that we were using for our stones, where we had it darker towards the center, towards where the wet would be. Moving that out towards the side where things would dry out a little bit. Okay, pretty cute. All right, and then at the bottom part, right where the last little waterfall is, first off, let me just refine this little line right there really quick with my brush. And then I'm going to create a darker blue color, just a little bit more pigmented. And then I'm going to do a few brush strokes coming out from there as like the little waves. But I want to have just a little bit of paint on my brush and have a little bit more water so that things are really nice and flowy. Okay, so a little bit of movement there in our water. Waves kind of coming towards us as the viewer. Teeny tiny brush strokes. A little bit thicker back here towards your horizon line in this part, and then a little bit slimmer, lighter. Oop, I got too thick just as I was trying to show that it should be nice and thin. Okay, but it's about what we're going for. And then we'll grab some really light blue and do something sort of similar and sort of stripy, just like in the white water. And sometimes I know I block the painting with my hand, and I'm sorry, you gotta get the right angle. I tried 2 cameras for a while, I couldn't do it, I'm sorry. 1-person crew, 1-woman show. Okay, looks pretty cute, but always make sure to use the digital format here as your friend. So you can always jump ahead and then see what I did. If I block my hand for a second, block with my hand. And I've started to add the finished painting up in the corner too, which was also a request that I got from my students. So thank you for making suggestions. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I can take constructive criticism. But we do try to keep things really simple, so the paintings are easy. Keeping it simple. And the filming is gonna have to be simple too. All right, I'm gonna take some green here. I took a little bit of yellow into my phthalo and mixed it with a little bit of white. And I still have my second to smallest little detail brush. I'm going to come and tap a little bit of green as well, but I wanna have a little bit of each, which is what the trees are already doing in my neighborhood here in the Southwest of the US. I know I have international viewers, so let me know in the comments section if things are blooming where you are already, or if it's gonna be a while. I think that adds a nice little something something. A little additional color. Again, leaving some space for the pink blossoms that I'm going to add in just a moment. All right. Nice. Let's grab a little bit of a yellow, light green, just like a couple of shades lighter. And I'm just really quickly gonna tap into those same areas with a little bit of a highlight. Little tiny details like this honestly can really bring a painting together. Always kind of just creating our shapes with our base colors for the most part, and then adding highlights and shadows. That's what it's all about. But we're gonna be a little easier today, even with our highlights and shadows, and just do highlights up there in the tree. All right, a little bit of pink now for our pink blossoms. Same brush. If you feel more comfortable using the smaller brush, go for it. All right, and I want to take the pink blossoms sort of around the green, and I do want to tap some like right over the green, but I don't want to blend my colors. Okay, so you may need to sort of wipe your brush off in between. Or my green is a little bit dry already, which is again just indicative of my climate here. Very dry and a little south than probably most people. That's why I say during the drying break that you just gotta come back when your painting is dry. I can't say like come back in 7 minutes or 15 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 35 minutes. It really varies depending on your climate, depending on the humidity on the inside of your house. I have a ceiling fan that I usually put on so things dry really quickly for me. And then it also depends on how much water you're using in your paint. So acrylics, you could have a thin layer of acrylics dry here in the Southwest in like 5 minutes. But the palette itself like has a whole bunch of paint on it. And some people will paint with like tons of paint. And I don't really. But those types of super thick painted ones will take like an hour to dry. And neither of it is wrong. It's all just ways that you can use the paint. So I'm tapping some light pink right into those same areas in the same way that I did with my green. And I just have a little bit of just red and white. Very simple. All right. Looks pretty. Going to do the same thing on my other side. We'll have such a dainty little waterfall moment today. I wanted to really keep it simple. Waterfalls can be kind of tricky, but I like this simple way that I learned long ago. Covering my green in some areas. And it doesn't have to just be on the ends. You can have some sort of in the middle there. We'd be looking through some as well. Very nice. Okay, and then just adding my highlight right on top. Wet on wet blending. Or in my case, wet on damp. Halfway drying already. Okay, very cute. I think I'm going to take even one more lighter color beige in some of my tree branches. Just to have the lightest highlights. And then maybe also a tiny bit of a darker shadow too. Just need a little bit more depth in these branches. Looks good. You can put any other final touches that you might like on your painting. If you did paint along today, I have a Facebook group called the Art Club that's specifically designed for my students to share their work with me and with other students. That's free to join, and there is a link in the description box below. It's called the Art Club over on Facebook. I love seeing your work. It's the best part of my day, and all the wonderful feedback that I get from everybody. When it's wonderful. It usually is. I have the best students ever. Truly, I'm so blessed with everyone that has been enjoying painting along, and I love seeing all the places that the classes are making it into. It's the best. All right, just a little bit of a darker shadow on some of those guys. Just helps with everything being nice and strong and visible against the background. Those are pretty similar in tone and value. All right, that looks pretty cute. I'd love to know what you thought of today's painting in the comments section below. Again, don't forget to join us over in the art club. That is all the